for the city of Needles, Tuesday, April 12th. Executive sessions at 5. Regular meeting is going to be at 6. Called to order, and please take the roll.
Councilmember Campbell? Here. Evans is present, but he stepped out of the room. Vice Mayor Pageant? Present. Councilmember Belt? Here. Councilmember Longacre?
Here.
And of course, Mayor Williams.
Here. All right. We're going to recess city council meeting and convene a joint council MQA SARTA meeting. Is there any public comments? Is there anybody there?
No one.
All right, we're going to recess to executive session.
Your Honor,
Yeah.
I have conflicts on C and D because I work in cannabis and I believe they're both cannabis related in executive session. So I'll only be joining you for the first two.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you. The first one is SARTA.
Excuse me, the SARTA explanation has been revised. I can read that for you if you'd like.
Go right ahead. Just go ahead and read the executive session stuff.
Okay. SARTA executive session conference with real property negotiator regarding sale by successor agency to the redevelopment agency property to Hunan Davidi and assignment of such rights to the city of Needles pursuant to government code section 54956.8. Agency negotiator, city manager Rick Daniels, negotiating parties, successor agency to the redevelopment agency as seller, and Hunan Davidi as buyer, and city of Needles as assignee of buyer. And the negotiation price in terms of payment, APN 0186-222-11-0000, formerly known as APN 0186-222-07-0000, at 26.86 acres located at Ice Plant Road and the I-40. B, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, government code section 54956.9D1. Regarding City Needles versus Kim Carter et al., 421 Acoma, California Superior Court, County of San Bernardino, case number CIVDS 2018115. C, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 and/or 3, one potential case related to claim dated March 2, 2022 from In-N-Out Construction. And D, conference with legal counsel regarding potential litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4, one potential case.
Super. All right, and with that, we'll recess into executive session.
And Jeff, I'll call you on my phone.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. We've already got the roll taken and everything. Are we gonna have an executive session report by the city attorney?
Yes, the council met in executive session on item number A, the SARTA matter. There was no reportable action. Item number B was conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to government code section 54956.9D1. City of Needles versus Kim Carter et al., 421 Acoma, California Superior Court, County of San Bernardino, case number CIVDS 2018115. There was reportable action on that item. There was a motion to approve a settlement agreement with U.S. Bank and Trust, wherein U.S. Bank and Trust will pay the City of Needles $13,354 in reimbursement of costs and fees the city incurred in connection with a code enforcement matter. And the vote was as follows. The first was made by Councilmember Evans and the second by Councilmember Campbell. And the vote was unanimous in favor of approving the settlement. And of course, the mayor didn't vote on that one. The next item, item number C, was conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to government code section 54956.9D2 and/or 3, one potential case related to a claim dated March 2nd, 2022 from In and Out Construction. And there was a motion to deny the claim that had been submitted by In and Out Construction. And the vote was as follows. Councilmember Campbell made the first to deny the claim, and the second was by Councilmember Evans. And again, the vote was unanimous. Each council member present voted to deny the claim. Councilmember Longacre was not present because he recused himself prior to the closed session in that particular item related to an application for a cannabis use. And the mayor did not vote. Everybody else voted in favor of denying the claim. And then the next item, item D, was conference with legal counsel regarding potential initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. One potential case. Again, Councilmember Longacre recused himself on that item because it involves a potential litigation against cannabis business. And Councilmember Longacre works in the cannabis industry, and there was no reportable action on that item. And that concludes the report out from closed session.
Great, thank you. Does the vice mayor want to handle the invocation and the pledge of allegiance?
Yes, Your Honor. First off, I'd like to introduce in the audience those previous members of our city council that are here with us this evening. Councilman Terry Campbell, Councilwoman Linda Kidd, Councilmember Sean Goodmanson, Councilmember Pat Murch, and I think I saw Tim Terrell just run out the door for a minute.
And Bob Rath.
Bob Rath.
And of course, Bob Rath, yes, kind of hiding behind you. Welcome. We're glad to have you in the audience tonight. And now I'd like to bring forth Connor Farrell. Connor is recent Eagle Scout who has taken the painting of the restrooms in the park and have a proclamation for him.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Proclamation Connor Farrell. Whereas Connor Farrell is in the 9th grade at River Valley High School, where he participates in football and track. And whereas in his spare time, he likes to race his BMX bike, camp, and go off-roading. And whereas Connor joined Cub Scouts in the 2nd grade, has been scouting ever since, and earned his Arrow of Light rank in 2018, the final Cub Scout rank before moving over to the Scouts, Boy Scouts of America program. And whereas he went to preschool and kindergarten in Needles and wanted to give back to the community. And whereas Connor, during one of his visits to Needles Skate Park, saw that the bathrooms needed to be painted and freshened up. And whereas his Eagle project was originally to paint the skate park bathrooms, but switched to the bathrooms at the sports complex after the city received a grant to upgrade Duke Watkins Park. And whereas Connor's future plans include remaining in the Scouts to assist others in their path to Eagle Scout rank and a career in the military or law enforcement. Now, therefore, I, Vice Mayor Edward Padgett, of the City of Needles, California, by the authority vested in me, do hereby issue this proclamation to recognize Connor Farrell for his service to our community. And thank you very much. Yeah, okay, go ahead. What is it?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor.
Congratulations. Thank you.
I have a card from Farrell. So thank you. He says, Thank you for allowing me to complete my bathroom beautification Eagle project at the Jojo Garcia Memorial Sports Complex, Connor Farrell, Troop 48. And that is the old Needles troop. That's it, Your Honor.
All right. Do you want to do the invocation and pledge of allegiance?
Sure. You do the.
Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, bless this town and its citizens. Guide our council and city staff in their judgments and deliberations. And bless those who travel the desert highways to come to this crown jewel in the desert. In God's name we pray. Amen.
Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda?
I'll second it. God, fix the light.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Campbell. Here. Evans.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes.
Belt. Here. Longacre.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any conflicts of interest besides ones we've already announced?
Patrick votes aye.
Yes, my bad.
Any correspondence?
None, Your Honor.
Thank you. As a courtesy to those in attendance, we'd ask that cell phones be put in their silent mode, please. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Public appearance.
Mr. Mayor,
Bob.
I have two introductions
Okay, go ahead.
I would like to do. First of all, we've had two recent new employees with the city. The first is Ashley Smith, saying that, and in the running for the most beautiful baby in the world, Patrick's. Ashley has two children, a daughter age 5 and a 5-month-old son. Ashley has lived here in the tri-state area for approximately 20 years. Ashley started her career with the Needles Code Enforcement Division in January of this year. Prior to working with Needles, Ashley was a police officer with the Fort Mojave Tribal Police Department for 3.5 years. Ashley has already completed Module 1 of the California Code Enforcement Officers Association certification process and is on track to complete modules 2 and 3 later this year to earn her full code enforcement certification. Ashley has told me she's looking forward to a long and rewarding career with City. Welcome.
Thanks.
Second of all, I'd like to introduce Elena Zalindo, is the new permit tech for the city of Needles. She's lived in the area for 13 years. She's a mother to an 8-year-old boy, which is one of Needles' newest residents. Prior to taking position of City of Needles, she previously worked with City of Bullhead as a building permit technician. So we stole her. The good people are moving south. She is currently working towards earning her permit tech certification. She tells me she truly enjoys her position, but she could be telling me straight. Both these young women are tremendous assets to the city and recent hires, and both of them are committed to achieving the certifications to validate their knowledge and qualifications in the field. So I want to welcome you on behalf of the council. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Welcome. All right, public appearance. Persons wishing to address the city council on subjects other than those scheduled or requested to do so at this time. When called by the mayor, please announce your name and address for the record. In order to conduct a timely meeting, a 3-minute time limit per person has been established by municipal code section -2-18. Amendments to California Government Code section 54950 prohibits city council from taking action on a specific item until it appears on the agenda. Are there any public appearances?
Julie Thornton. Thanks.
I'm Judy Thornton, 1835 South Drive, Mojave Valley. First of all, I look around this room and almost everybody in here either sponsored, volunteered, or attended the rodeo. We were overwhelmed by the support we got this year. We had record attendance numbers, and we welcome you all back next year. Thank you so much for your support. Second of all, yeah, I look at all the sponsors sitting up here. It's great. A tourism report. We have had about 1,000 people in and out of the El Garza since first of the year. That includes events and tours. We are doing at least one tour a week and sometimes two. The museum, which I consider to be our visitor center, has had about 300 people just in March. So our tourism numbers are up, our visitor numbers are up. We have a wonderful group of volunteers who are very dedicated, who are very informed. We market, we promote, and our best PR is word of mouth. And I want you all to think about something. We do it for free. Consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe.
Sheriff Johnson, 1320 Santa Fe Circle. Just to add on to that, the rodeo was amazing, and there was a ton of people. That dirt parking lot in front of the water tanks was overflowing with cars. And I think if we were to lose that to somebody or some entity, we would be flooding the neighborhood with vehicles and trying to scramble to find places to park. I don't think it was so much at the pandemic, but I think everybody was coming out to see it, and everybody was really enjoying that. The other thing, we now have a public dump that is starting, and I wanted the city to be aware of it because working on the freeway, I've noticed this pile beginning to grow. Monterey Street, that dead ends into the county wash and turns around, becomes Arizona. The state has the right of way that comes underneath into the wash there. People take their quads through under the 40 right there. That hillside I noticed started with a couch, then some more furniture. It looks like appliances are starting to show up. And over 2 weeks, I've noticed that pile starting to grow. That is not a area that anybody's really around. I think the house on the corner is abandoned or not lived in. So it's easy for people to come over there, dump their stuff right into the county wash. It's very visible to anybody getting on the freeway there. When you get on the freeway heading westbound, you look to the right, you just see all the debris coming down that hillside. So that needs to be, yeah, where Monterey dead ends and it comes around the circle. So they're using that area now for dumping down that hillside into the county wash. I've noticed it growing over the last 2 weeks as we're working there on the freeway and doing stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Yes. One more.
My name is Sarah Johnston. I live on Santa Fe Circle Street. I'm talking about the programs today because I want to be a part of them because I helped to raise some money. So I want to be a part of them. I want to see it aired. I don't know. That's all. It's on one side. I almost did that too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We're looking forward to you being part of it.
Okay, Jeff, that's it.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna go on to the MPUA council consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted by one motion form list. The mayor, any member of the city council or the MPUA may pull an item off consent calendar for discussion prior to MPUA. Council acts, a member of the public may address the MPUA city council on matters scheduled on the consent calendar. 3-minute time limit per person applies. Recommended actions to approve items 1 through 2. Wow. My affirmative roll call vote. Anybody want to pull any of that? We get a motion,
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second it.
call for the vote.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Pageant,
Yes.
Mayor Williams,
Yes.
Belt,
Yes.
Longacre.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the consent calendar, number 3 on it is adopt a revised electrical statement of policies dated April 2022 by amending the power cost adjustment balancing fund to reflect PCA to be 20% of the yearly over hydro budgeted power cost for the fiscal year.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and the Needles Public Utility Authority Board of Commissioners. Historically, the city has had a reserve of 200,000 to deal with dramatic changes in the power purchase costs. Very early last year, when we saw prices starting to change, the utility board increased that to $750,000. And then by the time that the power cost jumped from 65 a megawatt to almost 300, we had accumulated 1.2 million in that account. The utility board used nearly $400,000 of that to soften the increase that would have otherwise been required. So in the past, we've used an exact amount, 200, 750,000, whatever. The utility board is suggesting that we change more to what we have the reserves in the general fund. And that is, your policy is that we have 15% reserve. So regardless of what our budget amount is, our goal is always to have 15% in reserve for unanticipated emergencies like D Street Bridge blowout, lightning striking things. So instead, what the utility board is recommending is that for this particular fund, that we use a 20% of our power costs, our power purchase costs, to have that in reserve. And that's a prudent policy. It's sound. It provides a reasonable cushion for dramatic changes in power costs like we saw last year. So the utility board's recommendation, staff's recommendations, is that you revise the electric statement of policies to shift to a 20% reserve for those kind of cost adjustments. I'd be glad to answer any questions. And I know that the chairman of the utility board is here if you wanted to add any comments to that. There's questions.
Awesome.
Gary Campbell, 4469 Bourbon Street, Utility Board Chair currently. I'm going to go back to June 27th of last year. We get a call from Rainey, the Assistant Utility Manager, saying the settlement price is $296 a megawatt for peak energy. My question was, what is our current balance in the power cost adjustment for the tier 2 rate? She said 1.1 million. I said, so what do we need? She says 2.5 just for August and July. So we had to dip into the 15% cash reserves. We had to revise the budget because the budget year was starting 3 days later, the new budget year. And we had to raise rates in pretty drastic from 8.7 to 12.5, caused an uproar. Currently, we're still recovering from the depletion of that account because it went negative. From $1,000,001, it went negative to almost minus 230,000. We're back to in the neighborhood. Randy would be better to give you an accurate number as of today, but the last numbers we saw, we were in a $350,000 range, and projected to recover back to our 750 number by June, because we're purchased out through June. And even with maintaining the rate currently, we would be back to 750. But when she gives us our agenda, she gives us this kind of spreadsheets on what WAPA powers. And WAPA's projections look similar to they did last year, where they were up in the $225 a megawatt range. We always hope that they'll roll over, but we could get burned again like we did last year. And what we were thinking about was adjusting it up to about a $1.1 million account. Now that account swings, right? When we buy it drops off. And then the rate policy has to be implemented to try to recover and recoup that balance. So one of the board members suggested that we, instead of doing this every time there's these kind of energy crisis things, let's just do it on a percentage basis and just track. So to make it simple, last year our total budget for purchased energy was a little over 5 million, 5.3 million or something like that. So that would make the PCA account at 20% around 1 million, 1.1 million. So that's kind of where we kind of discussed and come up with that number. Now, and everybody should be aware of this because this is an election year, right? We're projecting 8 million for this year's power cost adjustment total for the year. That's what we're foreseeing is what we'll have to budget in our 2022-23 budget year. So that's any questions I'm be glad to answer.
So members of the board, the issue is to shift from a number like 750 to a percentage of our total power purchase costs, which our number in the general fund is 15% is always our target of total budget. And in this case, on power purchase, which is a small portion of our budget, it would be 20% of that number. And as Terry mentioned, that would be roughly $1 million in reserve based on the amount of money we have about budget now.
Your Honor, may I?
Yes.
Terry, put in layman's terms, pretty much this is a reserve, correct?
Well, it's our balancing account. When we initially did this rate policy way back in 2007, 2008, we figured that because energy was pretty cheap back then, and it even got a little bit cheaper, and just to remind everybody, we were paying about 15 cents a kilowatt hour for tier 2 back then, because we were still hooked up to Nevada Power. We didn't have the new line coming in over to Merrill Shaver substation. So to get to the point, we were doing plus or minus $200,000. So anytime that we got up to $200,000, we'd do a rate reduction. Anytime that we went below minus $200,000, we would adjust the rate to try to recover that account. And that was working well up until, don't want to get too political, but Joe Biden got elected. And when Joe Biden got elected, and I'll take credit, I don't want to hurt myself, pat myself on the back, but I was the one that brought it up to the board members in February 5th at our meeting last year. We better raise that account. And even the amount that we thought would be satisfactory, we got burned in June.
So you said that this account at one point was up to 1.5 million, right?
No, 1.1, it was about 1.1 on June 27th when I asked Rainey, and we were still at the 8.7 cents a
Yeah.
kilowatt hour. So we were in the thinking of the board was to make another rate reduction to lower that account, or wait to see what the summer was going to look like. We were getting these numbers from Rainey showing us what WAPA power brokers that work with WAPA were charging for peak energy. And one of the things that Rainey can explain a little bit better, besides this is our reserve for buying energy 4 months out. So when you buy that far out, it's a pretty big price tag. So that fund is going to fluctuate. And the other thing to consider too is, say energy prices stabilize and a barrel of oil comes back down to around $75, $80, and energy market starts to stabilize, or the election in November, you get a different face in Congress and they tell, we're going to reopen the pipelines and we're going to drill, baby, drill. The prices are going to, this is a commodity, right? So it's traded on the Chicago Board of Trade. So, we're subject to people being scared of shortages. And
So
am I
20%, raising it 20% will put it at about what the projected power purchase will put it at right about 1.1, like you said.
Yeah,
Correct?
and it shouldn't at this time change the tier 2 rates.
I commend you guys for this. I do. It's a positive step. It is. I don't want to offend anybody here, but I'm going to say this. I tried to be proactive in October and bring something to the agenda, and I don't know why, but it got tabled. An ad hoc committee was formed, and we've met a few times, and it was tabled, so no discussion was done. I think this is positive. I think we could add even more to this policy. I think we've talked about it, you and I, Terry. I think we can. You've mentioned forgiving debt. You've mentioned, and I've mentioned cannabis tax, excise tax going towards. All I wanted to do was discuss it. That could go towards this account here, this fund. If we can bring it back, if you guys can talk about it. I watched a utility meeting a couple months ago, and you had mentioned it. I thought, all right, here we go. You've brought this. I know you guys are working hard. I know you are, and I appreciate it. I think I speak for all of us. We appreciate it. I honestly think we could help all ratepayers out even more. I think this is positive. I think this will help us out tremendously. I think it will stabilize rates. But I think we can do more. I do. I'm confident that you guys, the utility board, will continue looking into ways to help all the ratepayers in the near future.
Well, can I comment?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I wanted to stick to this agenda item and not get into the debt relief issue because sometimes it's inappropriate to stray. But we got a budget year coming up, right? You guys got a budget committee. The Board of Public Utilities has a budget that we got to come up with by June 30th. You should include that in your budget discussions on debt relief, because the debt that the utility ratepayers pay each year is around 2.3 million. Debt service. Just leave it at that. Any other questions?
So at this point in time, there's no rate changes, correct? This is just we're changing it to a percentage from a number.
Yes.
And then second thing, topic will come up again depending upon rates again in June, since we have 4 months out, our corrective power.
Yeah.
Just so we're all clear
That's
for everybody.
that's the consensus of the utility board members, is that but we can't say we won't be raising
Correct.
rates,
Yes.
because if that account gets depleted because energy's still at $300 a megawatt and we deplete that account, we'll have to do a rate change to try to get that account back up to this 20% of total brown energy costs, is a better way to put it. Brown energy, cost of energy above hydro. But remember too, just for information, the Bureau of Reclamation has approached the city and they want to renegotiate that hydro contract. And it's mute right now, but the hydro, our hydro allotment is affected by the drought. And so currently the federal government, Bureau of Reclamation, is making up the difference between the hydro that they can supply due to the lake level at Meade and Powell, and what they have to supplement it with brown. So they're paying the extra cost in brown energy to provide that hydro contract. But they've approached the city and said, we want to renegotiate. So, and we were saying, well, we don't want to talk about it, but we'll just wait for the contract to end. But you never, you're dealing with the federal government. So,
Terry, my opinion, I think we're going to see probably more challenges with this administration in office. That's my opinion. I know it's not everybody's, but that's why I said I think this is a positive thing. But I also think that we can move forward with even more positive. I do, and I was going to ask too. And I might be out of line here. What would be the chances that the utility board even raise the 20% to 25%? Let's say.
I don't think right now the situation warrants.
Yeah, I agree, but we have in front of us right here, you were talking about how the cost per megawatt on peak is going to be about the same. We have in front of us, it's going to be $300 off peak, $100 or on.
Yeah, well, it's at 225 now, but it's trending up.
Yeah.
And, we're hoping it rolls back over and we can have a good opportunity to buy the summer months. But Randy would be better to talk about that than, because she watches that every day. I just watch Fox News every day and get depressed.
Your Honor.
Yes.
I just want, Terry, so just to go over some information for those who may or may not be aware, our utilities went down 17 cents and we've come back up 7. So we're still 10 cents less than where we were before, as far as creeping back up again. When we did the rate increase for the utility costs went down 17 cents, then we went up 3, and then we went up 4 in 2 different places is the changes that happened. So we are still 10 cents less than we were at one time. Isn't that correct, Rick?
No, not, when we,
She's combining
I'm combining all utilities.
yeah, okay, yeah.
I'm combining everything.
Yeah,
Everything.
yeah, I
Just
did.
our utility bills. When people think about an increase,
I'm
it's very hard for them. And my thoughts are, as we move forward and we know that these things are going to increase and we know that we are going to have to go up at some point, I think that it would be prudent to think about going up 1 penny at some point and not having to do a big jump. If we do 1 penny, it's not as painful. We go or 1%, I'm sorry, 1%. And then because then it's a slower increase than hitting everyone. Oh my God, this is where we're at. And we've got to go up 4%. So if we go to 1% and we do a small creep up, none of us like it, but the reality is we have to pay for what we use.
Your Honor?
Yes.
Or we look at other alternatives to help out.
Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't prepared to discuss the total bill because I know the total bill based on water and wastewater have been adjusted.
But we're starting to stray from the.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, just remember that this proposal is saying if we try to achieve 20% in reserve for these swings in power costs, if energy prices come down nationwide, our rates will trend down too on the electric side. Did you have a question for me?
No, that was it.
Thank you, Terry.
I would like to move to approve.
Thank you, Gary. Is there a motion?
I'll second it.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Campbell.
Yes.
Evans, Merritt.
Yes.
Pageant,
Yes.
Williams. Mayor Williams.
Looks like he's off.
Lost Mayor Williams, I believe.
He's
Now, Belt,
Yes.
Longacre.
Yes.
Thank you.
Looks like Mayor Williams is off. All right, I'll go ahead. Recess the joint MPUA started council meeting and reconvene the city council meeting, public hearing. Item 4, public hearing notice to consider all evidence and testimonies for or against short-term residential rentals. Staff report.
Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council, how are we doing tonight? In front of you, we have ordinance 649 AC, amending chapter 12 of our municipal code to include short-term residential rentals. So in 2021, the planning commission was receiving complaints from members of the public to move forward with an ordinance to help manage, govern, and maintain short-term rentals. Currently, our code doesn't recognize them. And so basically there was a increase in short-term rentals in the last few years, especially with Airbnb and VRBO becoming more popular. And with Needles being a recreation center, we're starting to see more of these come online. Currently, today, based on the analysis we got, there's 40 to 50 short-term rentals currently on the market at a $261 per night average stay for this month. And so basically, the issue is we have a business license process that's required. And so of those 40, only 4 have business licenses. So we need to be able to have a mechanism to regulate this industry and help bring these complaints like illegal fireworks, excessive noise, homes being used as wedding venues into compliance. And so in front of you, this ordinance would have an application process. It'd be $400 a year, which would pay for the staff time of our building official to go out to or building inspector to go out to the site, our code enforcement to go out to the site, and our permit tech to do the paperwork to ensure that these homes comply with California Building Code, the San Diego County Fire Code, and things of that nature to ensure that these homes are being provided and they're safe for individuals staying in them. So basically, these folks create a strain on our city that folks that stay in hotels do as well. And so the Planning Commission had also recommended moving forward with a transit occupancy tax, a 10% tax. So that's going to be coming to you at a later date. That's not what's on the agenda today, but I just want to let you know. So at their February 2nd meeting, the Planning Commission unanimously voted to approve or recommend to the council the short-term residential ordinance. Just to kind of give you an idea, application fees, looking at La Quinta, it's $1,200. Looking at Big Bear, it's $550. San Bernardino County is $667. Lake Havasu's 10.5% of tax of gross receipts. Needles is $400. So we don't want to make this a huge cost for the members of our community that do decide or homeowners in our community to decide to rent out their homes. But our recommended action is to approve ordinance 649, amending chapter 12, entitled short-term residential rentals. We did work with the city attorney to get this drafted up. I think we did a pretty good job, but open for any questions that you might have.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Okay, could you explain how the $400 works? It's not, it's one time and then, is it one time and then 3 years later again?
Yeah, so nice
Or is it
catch.
annual?
So in the ordinance, it was written that it's biannually on page 5, and that's not the case. So we're gonna, in your second reading, based off the testimony you received today as well, if you do decide to approve it tonight, we can bring that back and amend it. But basically, it's gonna be a once a year fee, because all we can charge is the staff time that it takes for us to inspect and process the paperwork. We don't make any money off of this currently.
Yes.
Now, this would just be almost like a business license, correct? And then the TOT would have to go to a ballot, correct?
That will come back to you.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
and it will go to a ballot
And, okay,
separate.
yes. So we're looking at bringing people, like, I mean, we're gonna encourage this, obviously, these, short-term rentals, right? And we're looking to charge them $400 a year now and then charge them TOT possibly on the agenda.
Which you haven't
It's a ballot.
which, yeah. And I brought the TOT up because it's important, because it's within the ordinance, so I don't want to surprise you. If a TOT becomes in place later in life in the city of Needles, then it's already programmed into this ordinance.
But this, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
this does not establish the TOT.
Correct.
That'll be a separate action that's later.
It's an application process.
Inspections.
Yes.
I know it's not on this one, but what is the city's TOT right now, say for a hotel room?
It's 10% of gross receipts.
Thank you.
All right, I'll open this matter to public hearing. Anyone like to speak on this matter? Linda?
Linda Kidd, 2238 Paseo del Rey Street, Needles, California. Chairman of the Planning Commission. You know, we had looked at this when I was on the council, and at that point, we didn't have a real way of identifying people, and it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. And we're not trying to discourage anyone from doing this, because I think we've all probably used VRBO or, you know, those situations, and they want their work really, really well. So, but our idea is, we've also heard from people that they have them in their neighborhood and there's not a way to regulate it. And so oftentimes you have 20, 30 people there, they have boats parked in their streets and, you know, loud music and things like that. So we want to encourage people to do it, but we feel that there needs to be a way of regulating it. And at the same time, you know, the fee was consistent with many other places, so we don't want to discourage that. The TOT, yeah, would be a tax, but at the same time, like when you stay at hotels, you stay at a VRBO, they add that on. So it's not really a cost to the homeowner, it's a cost to the renter. But we felt like the city kind of deserves to know where they're located and possibly get something back from it. So we felt it was time to move forward with it, and we look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to make the public comment? Sean, is that your hand up? Did you believe that?
I thought it too.
Anyone else? If not, I'll return to council for deliberation and action.
Hello?
Hello?
Yes,
Yes, I had my hand raised.
Oh,
okay, I'm sorry.
This is Jeff Severs at 3610 Riverview Terrace. How are you?
Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
I'm okay with most of what you have in front of this, but I've called around and it's kind of odd that you know, Needles has decided to go to La Quinta, Big Bear, and Lake Havasu, which if you look at their population, their median income, and their average house, it's way more than what you are in Needles. But if we go down to Parker and Blythe, both of those cities only require a license. And, you know, again, I'm okay with it. You're right. Taxes should be paid. The part I'm not okay with is somebody to come in and say, hey, you have to live within 30 miles of your home. I guarantee if you went to every one of these rentals, that the homeowner, that they do not live within 30 miles of that home. I use my house as a rental, and sure, I've had some bad renters, but I tell you what, I guarantee, just like Patrick said, there's hotels where you have problems with renters. There's other homes where you have renters. You got more problems than just the renters using these homes and with the city. So I don't know how you're going to inform the residents out there before you go through and send this through to approve it. But I think every homeowner should be notified that, hey, this is something you're going to put forward, because again, I don't know how many homeowners are aware that this is even being presented to the city, but every homeowner should have a chance to speak to you, because there's probably not many that live within 30 miles of their residence they're using as a rental.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
on that response, the planning commission took a look at what happens when there's a problem. Of people riding RVs across other people's property or parking on other people's properties and the like. And it was, the planning commission focused on that somebody ought to be able to get to that property within a half hour to deal with an urgent situation. Now, you can meet that requirement by having a management, like a realtor. Many realtors will manage properties such as this. But we want to be able to have, the planning commission talked about it a lot, that if there is a serious problem, that somebody in a responsible position needs to be able to get there within a half hour. So it's not that the owner lived within a half hour, but there is some responsible party, whether it is my cousin, my best friend, or a company that I hire. But we just need to have somebody that the sheriffs can get there within a half hour. If there's a brawl that's broken out, but somebody that with authority to restore order. So that was the context of the thinking on the 30 months. Somebody with authority needs to get there, because when the sheriffs or code enforcement show up, they may be dealing with the problem makers, the troublemakers. And we want to be able to have access to the owner to control what's going on their property.
This is good.
Yeah, just to reiterate, our thinking on that was, a lot of times owners will deal better with renters than calling police and get, legal authorities involved right away. And so it doesn't have to be the homeowner. There are a lot of the VRBO owners here that are LA, they're a long ways away. And you can set regulations, but if they know they can't be here to, really regulate it, they know it's not going to work, So if they have someone local, it could be a neighbor, it could be a friend, and at least that's their first point of contact. Or if something drastically goes wrong in the home, if there's a slight fire or whatever, there's someone there that can respond right away without getting the sheriff's department involved. Again, if you get the sheriff's involved, that again takes an officer many, many hours to deal with maybe just some minor thing. So that was our thing. It isn't meant to be a hardship for the owner, but all we need is a designated person as a first contact.
Okay, is it wording?
Yes.
We'll fix that wording.
It's actually in there now. It's either the owner or an agent needs to be available within 30 minutes. It's on page 8, section F, call response, F1.
Oh.
And Mr. Mayor, former Councilor Terrell brought a number of issues to our attention today. And we'll clean those up in the rewrite of the ordinance. For example, as Patrick mentioned, in one section it says $400 a year, another says $400 every other year. We figured the 400 based on a forecast of time that the code enforcement officer was going to have to deal with this. There were some language improvements in certain sentence structures. One of the issues was parking that perhaps, former Councilor Terrell asked it, that obviously the parking should occur on the property, but that the two on-street parking spaces that are in front of that property, that they should be allowed to use those, but not create such traffic jam that it goes down the street 4 or 5 houses. So there's just some clarification on a couple of issues that he brought to our attention that we'll be making some suggested changes. And they'll all be redlined.
So this is our first reading. Is there an action?
Our recommendation is after public testimony, that you consider that testimony and then vote to approve it, and then we will bring it back at your next meeting for second reading, but knowing that there's going to be some language changes to improve.
All right, is there some motion? Yes, go ahead.
I happen to be someone who has a home that, just to play devil's advocate, I own 10 cars. I own 3 RVs. I had to build a parking lot on my property because I got cited for being on the street. But we have company. I have 9 children. So if my family is here for Thanksgiving, I take up the whole street, well, I own the whole street, but I take up the whole street. And so there are lots of us that have family that come and we take up the whole block, or you have boats. Maybe if several family members have boats. So it's like, is this going to affect, is it going to affect us in any way? That we live here, they're going to come after us?
First of all, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
People know about the crowd that's the Campbell family. And
A lot of us.
that's kind of normal. But it is when somebody profits from, in true, creating a nuisance into a neighborhood, that's where our goal is to protect the existing neighborhood. But I mean, that's a normal course of events. There is a requirement that you can't have boats on the street for more than 72 hours. So anybody can still do that. So, but it is just trying to get a grip on this. A lot of cities are now moving to ban SDRs. I don't think that's where we want to be, because it is we're a resort. Yeah, it's tourism.
Ex-Councilman Goodmanson, go ahead, please.
Ex-councilman. Thank you, Doctor. I just want to address the parking issue. I've stayed out over the years with travel softball with a lot of VRBOs, Airbnbs. Most of them cities require you to park on the property because they don't want to take away from what Ms. Campbell just said. It's unfair for this to be a commercial establishment taking care for the property taxpayers of that city where they can't park where they may normally park. Most of it. So to remove that language is not in consistency with most VRBOs and Airbnbs. I know we're a resort town, but there's places you can park here. So like a cul-de-sac, we'll just take Miss Belt's cul-de-sac, for say there's one on there and they have 7 or 8 cars in there, that whole cul-de-sac is going to be taken up from people parking. So it's unfair to the residents that live there year round for the parking. So that's something that the homeowners should figure out on their own, where they're going to have their visitors park and not take away from the general public. Thank you.
Good.
Johnson, 1320 Santa Fe Circle. My sister's in San Antonio, Texas, has Airbnbs. My brother's in Missouri, has Airbnbs. To have somebody respond within 30 minutes, I think is unrealistic here. We don't have a property management company in Needles. Anybody that's coming is probably coming from Laughlin or Bullhead. It's going to take them 30 minutes just to get ready to leave, especially if you have a realtor or somebody who's showing houses or has a family. So to be able to contact somebody within 30 minutes because of an emergency, yes, we should call the fire department. Yes, if it's a party that's out of hand and there might be violence, yes, call the police department. That's why they're here. But to get a hold of somebody to handle a situation that's reasonable within 30 minutes to get a hold of somebody. My sister lives very close, almost next door to hers, and she still has somebody who comes, staffs it, cleans it, stages it, and handles any issues with upkeep, maintenance, anything broken. My brother's very far away. He's 3 hours from his. It's on a lake in a popular place in Missouri. His housekeeper is pretty much the person that does everything. So if there's an issue with anything, somebody getting locked out, an emergency, whatever, he calls the housekeeper. She goes over there. She really doesn't have authority to kick somebody out of the house, but she's there to clean it, let somebody in case of emergency, say, hey, yeah, if there was a fire, hey, this pipe's broken, you need to get a plumber. So I think any property management company in Bullhead that's looking at these properties here is going to say the same thing. Okay, I'll have somebody come take a look at it. And then you're going to have a plumber come over there within a week, a couple days. If it's an emergency, they might get there in an hour. But I think somebody to actually be on site within 30 minutes is unrealistic. To be able to get a hold of somebody and speak with them in 30 minutes, may not be the person that's entitled and has authority over the house. They might just be the person that's cleaning it, staging it. So some of the wording might need to be changed.
I think the city attorney has understanding that and is going to be working on
We'll work with Patrick and Rick and.
Yes, please come forward. I live in an area that's affected by two Airbnbs, both absentee owners from Southern California. One is extremely conscientious, makes every effort to accommodate the property line, make sure they still. The other simply says, call the sheriff. Period. Could care less if people are what docks they're on, what beaches they're on, where they're running. They're overpopulated. How in this ordinance do the affected homeowners know who to call? Who is this agent that's 30 minutes away? Yes, please.
What the ordinance envisions is that the city would, that let's say you own an Airbnb and you would have the city would have the owner's name and address and phone number. And those would be available to the neighbors as well. Also, the sheriffs would have access to that database as well. So it would be community knowledge that would be available. So if you had a problem with your next door neighbor that was their renters were out of control, you could call them or you could call the city.
Yeah, and again, we have two types of owners. Those that are very concerned about the local community, and those can simply care less. At $1,200 a night, they don't give a damn. And the $400 fee seems minimal to me. I don't see why the city shouldn't have a little profit center in there. Thank you. Thank you. All right, any further public appearance? Bob.
Bob Roth, 3550 Riverview Terrace. As we spoke about this, we want to have a designated person, whether it was the owner, like I said, neighbor, whatever, that was able to respond and keep the city's time and involvement to a minimum. And one of the things that we talked about, it was brought up about management, property managers. And the discussion that we just heard is about Van Laughlin or Bullhead. And our discussion was, well, I don't know if there aren't any property managers in Needles, but there should be, and there could be, and that's possibility for, business, employment, whatever, if somebody needs it. So I understand that right now they may only be in Bullhead or Laughlin, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be here if this becomes something necessary and for the property owners in this, in this town. So even though they might be there, it doesn't mean that that's going to be the case in either the short term or long term. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other public appearance? Please come forward.
Kathy Odell, 1933 DeSoto. At the beginning of the discussion on this item, it was mentioned that there are 40 or 50 BRBs or rental properties in town.
Yes.
Only 4 have a license, a business license,
Yes.
because it's not required.
No, it is required, and we're doing a code enforcement sweep of all those to get those non-compliant.
Because my question is, how do you enforce a $400 fee versus a $56 current license fee
Right.
when you currently only have 4 people who are complying with the law?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
the business license, we believe that there are 40 or 50 out there. There's a company that believes there's another 40 or 50 out there.
Okay.
When they went online and started, if you looked up short-term rentals in Needles, there's way more than we thought. So the first step is to get all of those that we know and notify and require building or a business license, excuse me. So, business license. And we're gonna go get those people in compliance first.
Okay.
And then as they get their business license, we'll inform them of the need to get this, basically a structural check to make sure it's a safe place.
Okay. That was mentioned and I thought, how do you enforce this when
No, it's a good question.
you've got nobody complying?
Thank you, Kathy. Do we have any other public appearance? If not, I'm going to close the matter for public appearance, return for further deliberation and for a motion. Yes, please, go ahead.
I think this passes, it gives us another great opportunity for a marshal. Create a city marshal position like this could enforce regulations for these short-term rentals. You can go with, they can do the short-term rentals, illegal dumping, illegal truck and big rig parking and litter, commercial issues, community park enforcement, non-emergency calls for services to not take a deputy off beat. If this passes, another great opportunity we have here. Where, you're asking how can we get this? We don't send code enforcement out there. We have this person and that's what he's doing. Or she.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Isn't that code enforcement why we hired the third one?
Well,
I mean,
Mr. Mayor.
this is new, this whole
and
this whole aspect.
I'm starting to drift a bit here.
But
if an additional position is warranted, then one would be, but it'll be based on this.
could I ask a question on this? If like this gentleman said when he got up to speak, they can still call the city, and then is there, if you're not in compliance with whatever the rules are they therefore fined? What's the next step on this? Like, how does that work?
There is a fining and repeated violations end up in revocation of your right to conduct a commercial enterprise in residential.
Yeah, to answer your question also, there's a notification process to the neighboring owners of the properties as well. 300 feet will all be notified that there's an application, but it's the normal 12A process. So it'll be a site depending on the longevity or the gravity of the issue. They'll notice a violation, first citation, second citation, third citation. We've also got a suspension and revocation of license in here. So there's a hammer just in case people don't want to be proper property owners.
Thank you.
I have a question for the council, and that is, there was discussion about how much time how long the response time should be from the owner or the agent, but it'd be good to get some direction from the council what you all think that response time should be.
We found that the 30-minute requirement is a common requirement in other cities' ordinances.
For on the phone, right?
Yeah. What's that?
For on the phone, right? I can't get
No,
anywhere in 30 minutes anymore. Like, you can't. You can't. I was 15 minutes for a Zoom meeting late today because I couldn't make it back from Target. It took 40 minutes to get back from Target today.
Yeah, I didn't even get to court right.
Well, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Our goal is to protect those adjacent property owners, to protect the peace and quiet for them. And if you're going to be in this business, you need to have somebody who can take care of the problem, can represent the owner, whether it is the maid, your buddy, your cousin, whatever. But, we're not putting a stopwatch on anybody.
So my answer is an hour. That's my answer to your question. Maximum.
Sounds like property management might be a nice occupation for someone in this town. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
I will second it.
Did we get it timed?
Motion.
My motion is to approve it the way it is.
No amendments?
You have a second?
Well, I mean, other than the ones they're gonna make.
Motion.
Ron asked us all a question.
I'd say 30 minutes for now, maybe 30 to 60, but
Okay, thank you.
The place is burning 30 is a long time.
Yeah.
I hope they call 911.
You're absolutely right.
House is burning down. All the relays.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We do. All right, call for the vote.
I'll second that. I second it already. I'll start it. We're third it.
30 minutes to the board.
Yeah,
I think we have the.
I think we got it.
Councilmember Campbell.
Yes.
Evans.
No.
Merritt,
Yes.
Belt,
Yes.
Longacre.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. The mayor or any member of the city council may pull an item from the consent calendar for discussion. Prior to council action, a member of the public may address the city council on matters scheduled on the consent calendar. A 3-minute time limit per person applies. Recommended action: approval items 5 through 18 on the consent calendar by affirmative roll call vote. Anyone like to pull any of the items?
Your Honor, I'd like to pull item 11, please.
11? Okay. Can we have a motion?
Can I pull number 12, please?
Okay.
I make the motion to approve 5 through 18 minus 11 and 12.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second call for the vote.
Councilmember Campbell.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Merritt,
Yes.
Belt,
Yes.
Longacre.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 11, accept change order number 1 in the amount of $15,840 and the deductive change order number 2 in the amount of a negative $967,360, and issue a notice of completion with Lane Christensen LLC for work completed to this stage, and the notice of completion with San Bernardino County Recorder's Office. Staff report.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, the city went through a study to find the best place for a new well. We were awarded a grant to the tune of 1.509 million to do that well. We went to bid, council awarded the contract to Lane Christensen, who's dug all of our other wells to do a borehole test hole. We drilled down about 400 or so feet, found plenty of water, but the water had elevated levels of not only manganese, but also iron. And therefore, the water didn't meet the requirements. So the utility board took a look at the issue and decided, because the options were to go find a new well site. And the utility board felt that they had exhausted the options based on well volumes. And if manganese is just part of the Colorado River, and it does not create health problems. So the second option was to build a treatment plant at well 16. And that would have given us well 15 and well 16 as a backup. And we could alternate keeping both active. Instead, the utility board chose an alternative, which is if we build a wastewater treatment plant down between well 11 on the golf course, adjacent to the golf course, and 12, which is on the golf course, that would give us well 15 that we're using now, plus those other 2 wells as backups. So we would go, instead of having 1 well and a backup, we'd have 1 well and 2 backups, because they all 3 of those could produce 2,100 to 2,500 gallons. So that's the course we've been on. So we terminated the contract with Lane Christensen. They were anxious to get to wherever they were going next, because well drillers are in huge demand. So that that's kind of the framework of this. Be glad to answer any questions.
John?
Go ahead.
I had a lot of questions from citizens about this, and when I started looking into it, I saw the 1.5 million, which was a grant, correct?
Yeah.
And then the deductive change order of 967,000, which meant we spent out of that grant over 500 grand.
Yeah,
right?
almost 600.
For the drilling and the studies.
Right.
And I am not a well digger, so I'm spitting a lot of questions here, I should say it in a nice way. The studies we did, that has to be drilled, to get those studies for that water, we have to actually drill the casing and everything.
Yeah, we didn't put casing.
Okay.
We just did borehole. Now there's casing at the top.
Okay, yeah.
But the very top, like 10 feet.
I guess what I'm asking is, all that really cost over 500 grand?
It did, and as you recall, the initial estimate was 1.9 million.
Yes.
And the only bid we received was 5.2.
Okay, next question is.
But we did spend 600,000 too.
Next question is that the change order, are we gonna be able to roll that over?
Yes.
We are.
Yes,
Okay.
we're in discussions now with the State Water Resources Board about them funding, so they're reimbursing us the 600. Because you don't know until you drill down and get that.
They are reimbursing.
They are reimbursing us. And then they have in front of them the proposal to build a $7.2 million water treatment plant that would bring those other 2 wells into production, which right now we've lost them. So that's the strategy. But yeah, we are being reimbursed.
All right. Let's go on to discussion number 12, or we want to take an action now.
Motion to pass 11?
Okay, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to pass item 11.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second call for the vote.
Councilmember Campbell.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes.
Belt.
Yes.
Longacre.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 12, accept the cost increase for work designated by Arizona Department of Transportation under the intergovernmental agreement for an additional $405,000 for the bridge using general fund reserves.
Okay, Mr.
Staff report.
Members of the council, there has been 10 years of discussion about the need to improve the bridge over in Arizona, right here. Because over the 40 years it's been there, it has sunk a little bit to where that, you said the axle breaker, and the decking itself needs to be refinished or relaid. So the initial estimate on this was $1 million. The city has 50% responsibility for that cost. And the state of Arizona has 50%. Why this is a city responsibility dumbfounds me. Because this is a bridge that connects 2 states, but it is what it is. By the time they got it finally designed, it had grown to 1.6 million, which meant that our share was 800 and Arizona's was 800. Dr. Paget, through San Bernardino County Transportation Authority, was able to get all but $18,000 covered by a Caltrans grant. They put it out to bid. They got one bidder and they rejected it, but it was $2.4 million. And at 8.5% inflation, like last month, so our share grows to 1.2 million. Now, we've already provided 800,000, which almost all of it's come from the state, Caltrans. And in order to go to bid, Arizona needs assurance that we'll pay our 405,000. Caltrans has assured us they will provide us that 405,000 reimbursed, like, excuse me, 88.5%. So it'll cost us another $15,000. And then Caltrans will pick up the rest of it. So we're gonna front the money and then get reimbursed 88.5%.
I pulled it. I just wanted to just clarify all that. So I make a motion to approve it.
All right, we have a motion. Second. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second call for a vote.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Merritt,
Yep.
Belt,
Yes.
Longacre.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the consent calendar. Regular item number 19, ordinance number 650-AC, amending section 15A-3, closing hours of certain recreation areas, and 15A-7, designated skateboarding area hours. First reading, staff report.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The city has 3 different sets of hours of operation. Most of the parks, Duke, Franz, Jack Smith, Annie Morris, Old Trails Monument, Santa Fe, the hours of operation are, they're closed between 12 midnight and 5 a.m. When you look at the hours of operation for Jack Smith, it is 10 p.m. rather than midnight. Again, 5 a.m. Then when you look at the hours for the skate park, it's dawn to dusk. So for ease of administration, and in discussing it with the Parks and Recreation Commission, they recommended that park hours be, first of all, set in a uniform fashion. All of them. All of them. And so I'm just bringing what that time bracket is. But so whether it's code enforcement that responds or the sheriffs respond to an issue in the park, that there is one uniform set of hours. So they're recommending 10, and they chose 10 because that's the curfew for minors. It's 10 o'clock. Not all the people in the park are minors. But so it's really, I'm bringing the policy question of, I strongly encourage uniform hours, but you tell me what they are. That's the really. See.
You're
All right.
I don't have a problem with the uniform time for the parks, but this list, 3 is First Beach, 6 Jack Smith Memorial, 8 is Manny Morris Beachside Park, and 14 is Second Beach. People fish late night. We've already lost 1 point next to the north side of the bridge with the fenced off point. That was one of the most popular fishing points in town. As long as we're not stopping people with fishing poles, and that means parking too. If there's free parking at Manny Morris or in front of the park at Jack Smith, and people are walking with fishing poles at 11 o'clock at night, we shouldn't be shooing them away. That is an active sport that's been here forever. So just keep that in mind on those 4. And also, since we have all those parks right here, when we have the grassy knoll, are we going to have 2 separate park names? Is it all going to be Manny Morris? Or are we going to decide on a new park name?
You're good, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
My suggestion would be that you provide a new name for that park. I think that there are people in the community that have a history of contributing to recreation that could be properly honored.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans?
I think the same thing, Zach. And that's why I'm gonna make a motion to table this and bring it back with. I don't have a problem, just like Zach said, of the time frame being all the same, but I do have a problem with some of them being the same. So I guess I do have a problem I'm gonna make a motion to table it and bring back another reading to where you can look at there and say, all right, there's gonna be adults there past 10 o'clock, and we all know that. I'm gonna be there past 10.
When I drank, I didn't come off the river till 10 at night in a boat.
So, yeah, I'm gonna make a motion to table this and come back with another reading with changes of
Mr. Mayor?
times.
Yes.
Councilor Evans, can I ask you to think about an alternative? And the alternative would be to give us direction. Do you want it to be 12 for adults and or fishermen? People that are fishing?
People fish all night, you know, like,
Yeah,
I think it's relevant.
is that legal?
how's that not legal?
Absolutely. Is it?
We have a motion to table.
Oregon is.
Do we have a second?
Is there a second on the motion to table?
What does tabling do? It kills it, right?
It
ends
continues
discussion on it
it
for now.
continues it to a future meeting. You can table it to a specific date, or you
I'll
can table
second
it to.
Okay, we have a motion to table. We have a second.
Debate.
Call for the vote.
It's off all debate.
And in my motion, can I say to bring it back in the next meeting
Yes,
with, after discussion?
you can amend your motion. You can change the motion.
Discuss it now. We can't discuss it if we, I mean, we can discuss it now.
Oh, yeah. I guess I
Can
meant,
you like hold off and let us discuss
Yeah,
it now?
this motion is.
I'll pull
Motion,
my motion to table it.
you can't pull it till there's a second.
I'll pull my motion.
All right, then go ahead. And who's next? Ellen?
I talked to Rick about this too, and I have the same 4 circles. I don't have any problem with all of them, all the others being, being at 10 o'clock at night. But First Beach, Jack Smith Park, Manny Morris Beach, and Second Beach, we are a tourist destination. We have people who come here with boats. We have people that are out late at night. We live in a place where it got to 132 in the shade last summer. And I don't see the weather getting any better. And people are out at night. It's hot. They're outside at night. They're at the river. And I don't have any stats on the police and what they have to go through down at the beach. But if we, if we have to revisit it, it was going to be my thought that we do everything uniform except the beaches. The beaches be a different time, either no time or a time. So that's just my thoughts for discussion.
Okay, Councilmember Merritt?
The ones that they're discussing, the beaches that we're discussing, is there currently a closing time now?
Yes.
So all we want to do is just make it uniform so it's not so confusing for the cops and first responders, because can be confusing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
Or you could have the parks like Duke Watkins and the ball fields. You could have those at a time. And then the beaches you could treat differently because there's a characteristic. So if you're going to go to enforce, closing time at the beach, it's the beach and that's midnight. If it's the parks like Duke or wherever, then there's a distinguishing characteristic from those down by the beach, down by the river. And that's what we're really looking for is, so code enforcement or whomever who might be, or the sheriffs who might be called out, they can intuitively know when the closing time is.
It's important.
Ask John a question. If we were to, if it were decided, or just put it out there hypothetically, if they decided 12 o'clock on the beaches and 10 o'clock at parks, what about fish and fishermen can fish? So fishermen can fish all night long. What happens to, can we really discriminate like that?
I
Yeah.
think the
And that's a good thing.
enforcement part of it would be the problem. The enforcement part would be the problem. I think the consistent rule that Rick is recommending would provide clarity for whoever's enforcing the rule.
Okay. Otherwise, anybody can carry a fishing pole.
Right. But people can, yes.
All right, go ahead.
Can we close a federal waterway?
Yeah,
You're not closing
you
the
can't
waterway.
close
you're not closing the waterway, you're closing,
Those parks are the only access you have to that waterway. Otherwise, we're trespassing through people's backyards at Rio Buena. Like, there's only a few places, unless you have a 4-wheel drive to go downriver onto BLM land. There shouldn't be a time limit at the river. That's it. If I want to go swimming right now, I should be able to go swimming. If I want to walk down when it's 100 degrees at midnight in July, I should be able to walk from my house to First Beach and throw a dive. It's a river.
So it is not uncommon, for example, when you go to the beach, for them to have an hour that you're not allowed to be on the beach after a certain hour. So.
Mr. Mayor.
Just a minute. Donna?
No, I mean, I get all these people, but I'm thinking of it as just people sleeping on the beach, homeless. That's my thought process. I'm sorry, that's my only thought. Is that you can't- We've had
that.
No, we've had a problem last year where they had how many tents did we pick up from the cleanup down there? I mean, there was quite a few.
City manager.
That's my thought process on it.
I agree with the councilor. I acknowledge what you raised. I would strongly urge you to have some hours or else.
Park hours or beach hours?
Park hours, because that's all we regulate is park.
Right here, it has saying first beat.
Well, but that means the park portion. Because otherwise, there have to be hours, otherwise you'll have camping.
Right.
And
Yes.
we wouldn't have the ability to say, no overnight
Living
camping.
in the.
Now, you can camp down at Jacksonville Park. Then it's like a $10, $15 overnight, but you get that at the toll booth. So there is ways to do that, and they would be exempt, and they'd have a piece of paper that would say overnight camping.
Can we park and go to the beach if it's midnight? We would be able to park our car and go to the beach and swim after midnight? In that park?
All right, I'm gonna open this matter to public hearing. Mr. Rath.
Bob Rath, 3550 Riverview Terrace. Part of what I was going to bring up was just discussed, but one of the things that we do in a city is, whether it's parking or occupancy of parks or whatever, is you have at least a certain time frame that you can't be there, so that you can't be there continuously or overnight or whatever. So like you said, an hour it's closed an hour, so you can't be camping overnight if that's what you don't want. So like I said, you guys were discussing it after I came up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public appearances? Seeing none, we'll return it to council for a deliberation and a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion to table it.
All right, we have a motion to table. We have a second call for the vote.
Councilmember Campbell,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Merritt,
No,
Belt,
No.
Longacre,
Yes.
And we're gonna bring it back next meeting.
What does that do?
And I believe that passes because
Not an ordinance.
you have
Yeah.
3 votes.
3-2.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we can bring this back to the meeting? No. he wanted to-
Oh, the first motion to table, he said next meeting.
He meant that.
Oh, so a continuation.
Continue.
Okay, all right. Okay, never mind.
Is that okay?
Education.
All right.
We'll have it back on your.
Thank you. Item number 20, review and authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support for legislation proposed by Senator Shannon Grove.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Senator Shannon Grove, who represents this area, has authored 7 pieces of legislation that she's requested the city endorse. And, like all legislative titles, they all sound great. Like a tax credit for people who hire homeless or foster youth. allow fuel haulers to increase their vehicle weight to 88,000 pounds rather than the current 80, to allow more efficient delivery of fuel to gas stations. Another is to prohibit the import of crude oil into California from countries that have human rights abuses or environmental standards below those of California. Another one is to allow the Veterans Administration to create satellite medical clinics at the 8 veterans homes in the state. Another one is to the gas tax that we currently have has an annual escalator, would be to repeal that in this period of rapidly escalating. Another would be to create a disabled veterans property tax exemption. And the last one would be to increase the seriousness and the label it as a serious and violent felony, human trafficking, which right now it's not classified as a serious violent crime. In your packet is the background on why the senator is proposing this in a draft letter. You can choose not to take position on any of them. You can choose to support all of them, or you can, an alternative available to you would be reading these for 2 weeks and study them more, and then make a decision at your next meeting. But these are pieces of legislation that have been introduced by our Senate.
Deliberation by the council. Anyone have any comments?
I personally only looked over a little bit, and I would like to look them over a little bit more. So I make a motion to continue it till the next meeting, just so I can have a little bit more time to review it, because I've only reviewed some of them.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, call for the vote.
Councilmember Campbell.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes.
Belt.
Yes.
Longacre.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, Ellen, number 21, home key program discussion regarding a state program to provide transitional housing for the homeless.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, there is a program at the state level that provides funding for homeless shelters or transitional housing to get people out of homeless condition. And those funds have been used for communities to buy hotels, motels, and then or individual houses and then convert those housing for homeless. So we have, I've had a number of meetings, number of phone calls. How this first came to us was the motel between the Jehovah's Witness Church and the new hotel, Hampton Inn. That hotel, that owner wanted to do a home key program. And we concluded that she had some zoning problems that needed to be cleaned up. But also there was concern about that place in relationship to a new $15 million investment in the Hampton Inn. And I get an earful of that from the New Hampton Inn. So that's how it first came to us. But since then, there's a party that wants to buy 8 houses in the community and convert those to homeless. They're unidentified at this time. So we met with some people in Big Bear that had done this, and we researched. So the first thing that needs to be done is somebody would have to become the public partner. And that is the agency responsible for this program. So it has to be somebody who is the grant recipient. Now, in Victorville, they did it. They got $28 million to build 100 units. But the city, 172, the city was the provider. So they were the grant applicant. The next thing is the site has to be determined before you file an application, or sites in the case of 8 homes. There has to be a land survey done of the property. You have to secure a property appraisal. You have to conduct third-party home inspection to determine, much like when you buy a house, you have to have a home inspection about bugs and critters and termites and what have you. You have to develop a work scope and a cost estimate to convert the housing units. You have to assure that Americans with disabilities will be required, be met. You have to gain site control before you can file an application, which means you have to have an option. You either have to own the property or have an option to purchase. And then you have to go and, after you get the grant, rehabilitate it. So that's a lot of work, and I took it as far as I could before I felt that the council as a body needs to decide whether to pursue this program. The homeless need help. Nobody's arguing. Our latest count was either 11 or 12 homeless in the time and place certification that the sheriff's department did. And it was done countywide at the same time. And before we get too far into this, I thought council should make a policy decision about, do you want staff to pursue this? We have an estimate from our grant writer, California Consulting, of about $5,000 to develop the grant application in terms of what their fee would be. Some of you may think, and Rainey did. Rainey's been so successful in what she has, but other hardware, but we're having a hard time getting those projects out the door and under construction. And the other just word of caution I'd provide you is the city has a mission. And that mission, I would suggest, is public safety, parks, streets and roads and sidewalks, development review, water, and utilities. And traditionally, social services across this country have been provided by counties. So while we all can agree that the homeless need some help, there's got to be somebody, another public agency that can do this, because this would be something that we haven't done before. And it's outside of our expertise, but they need help. So that's, I don't know how much you glean from that, but that's where we're at.
Did you have mention of time commitment?
Oh, well, it's gonna take, the applications are due in September. So that's 5 months. It would be probably 3 days a week for those 5 months for a staff person to work alongside the grant writer.
Mr. Evans?
In the second bullet there, Rick, it says, the last sentence says staff raised a question about whether this is a project better suited for the Needham Public Housing Authority.
Right. Yeah, well, I think it would. I mean, there is a countywide housing authority. And then Needles is the only jurisdiction in the county that has the Needles Housing Authority.
I grew up there.
Yeah, and so the question because right now the rules say housing authorities can't be the principal or the public partner. But I need to research whether our housing authority is a different creature, and maybe they could. Because what this does is if we do this and if we're successful, it commits the city to manage this property for 55 years. To assure that it's available for homeless for 55 years. Well, yeah, but it's the housing, well, we have a different relationship because the housing authority is a separate entity. We appoint their board, but they're the ones who have the responsibility. And they probably have that same 55-year obligation to provide services to low income. But it's the housing authority that carries that burden. We just appoint 2 of their board members.
All right. Discussion by the board.
Your Honor, this program was brought to us by someone, and then we started researching it. And what we're looking at here is a discussion on whether or not we even want to do this. There is a nonprofit who wants to do it, is willing to be the nonprofit, and is willing to obtain the housing. As far as the housing is concerned, the housing is not secured. Its offers are made contingent on whether or not you would get the grant. If you don't get the grant, that all goes away. And then the money that is spent in putting it together is recouped by the grant. And it comes back on the grant. So it's a whether or not we want to do that. The woman who wanted to do this, it was determined that just wasn't going to work. Not by just us, but the person who did it. In Big Bear, where they did it there, I mean, their median house cost is $2.7 million. Okay, our median cost before the prices were driven up was about 80,000. And now it's 160,000. So our houses are there. So they have a need there. Where I grew up, there's a need there. Those houses are more. They're $10 million homes. There's homelessness there too. So what this is looking at a transitional or bridge housing that could be secured or put somewhere to have someone living there so that they could go get services, get out of the streets, get off the streets, because homelessness is not going away. It is not going away. They aren't getting on a train and leaving here. They're here, and the number is 12, and the number isn't really 12. I mean, that's the counted number of people that are actually homeless, but we have people that are living in a situation where they do not have homes. They live somewhere else in a place where there's a lot of them, and they do not have homes. So they are technically homeless also. But this is just something that's been brought to us that we can do this. There is, I think it was, I don't remember. It's like billions of dollars put into this program. With their $600 million available to this program, 30% of it has been allocated. So there's 70% of 600 million left that we could capitalize on if we choose to do it. So this is just bringing it to the council to see if council is interested in making that move. And Wendell, the gentleman in Big Bear who did the place in Big Bear and the one we just saw presented in Lake Arrowhead for Victorville was a $28 million project with a 172-bed modular home, but they're having a medical center and a recuperative center. So they're going really big, but they're a much bigger city with a lot more need than our need. But we do have a need. So it's one of the possible solutions to the problem that we have, because it's a problem that's being discussed a lot. And it's like, if we just keep talking about a problem and we don't go to a solution, when are we ever going to get out of the problem? So this is one possible solution. So that's all this is. So for discussion.
Thank you. Any other comments by the council? If not, I'll open the matter to public appearance. Sean?
Good evening, Honorable Vice Mayor and Council. Once again, I applaud the city in tasking the ability to attack this problem. Unfortunately, the city has a bad past of running things. We had a dump we couldn't run. We had a hospital we couldn't run, and now we turned over our golf course because we couldn't run it. So $5,000 seems like nothing, but what's the projected cost for 55 years? I mean, you're spending unfunded time, council's hands, like we did with Jack Smith. That was all hunky-dory until we knew we couldn't really do nothing down there for 20 years, so the grant ran out. So looks good on the outside, but on the inside, we got to get to the meat and potatoes of it. And right now, I just don't think the city should be in the business of trying to do any homelessness shelter, maybe some funding towards some of our nonprofits, help them if you want to do that. Spend the $5,000, give the firehouse their set free, let them help them with their services. But to actually invest and do this home keep program is probably a bad idea for this city. Not only that, we have lots of land that was Mr. Hannaway wanted something to do with his property down there on North K. It was great for that project down there, something you put our contacts within this group within the city property owners, and what firehouse or someone wants to do it. So just I applaud you for not pursuing it at the adjacent to the Hampton Inn. That was a long project, from 7 years in making, and it would just destroy that. Sherrod's dream would be destroyed by having that be turned into an assisted living, transitional living place. Thank you.
Thank you. Jared?
Johnson, 1320 Santa Fe Circle. Yeah, we have a homeless issue. I think bringing in a facility or building a facility would not only provide some help, but also give the county a reason to start shipping a lot of people out here that we wouldn't have room for. We also have an issue. I spoke with a guy today who's living on the side of the freeway. He's an avid drug user. He uses a lot of drugs. He even warned us where he hides his needles. He doesn't want to be in housing. He likes being homeless. He likes doing his drugs. You're going to have those people. They don't want to commit to rules. They don't want to do this. When we went down to Blythe, we ran into undocumented people. We also ran into people who are sex offenders who don't register. So they don't want to come out into the public because they're going to go back to prison. And it's too hard for them to get over to the parole officer because they're on drugs. And that's the way they like it. They can move around, do what they want. So you bring that into the community with these facilities. I'm not saying that we don't need it eventually with the homeless, but also people who are on assistance who aren't homeless do not get services here. One of the kids broke their arm playing ball. Nobody would see him here in town. They didn't have an orthopedic specialist. So where'd they go? San Bernardino. The kids were getting sick, so where they got to go? San Bernardino, because they have county insurance. So they only can do so much here in town, providers going outside of the area. So you also have that issue with providing care for them, proper care. We do have clinics that come every once in a while, but for stuff, most of them have to transport, get moved out. So we also have that issue. So I'm not saying that it's not something that will eventually be needed, but as of right now, I think there'd be a lot for the city to take on. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Are there any other public appearance? Yes, sir. Greg Traps in Riverview Terrace. Just like to speak briefly to the location that they're talking about. Recently traveling on business in California, staying at mid-level Wyndham hotels, once on Tulare Avenue in Fresno and Manchester Avenue in Sacramento. Drove into the parking lot. The homeless people loitering in the parking lot. I didn't even leave my car. I canceled the reservation and drove around until I found a place where I could suitably go out for dinner at night. As to these millions of dollars that the state has on the table, 48 miles approximately in Northern California constitutes the city of San Francisco. The same 48 miles constitutes the county of San Francisco. But the best liberal minds work. These two levels of government have created the largest urinal in the state of California. I think we should give some thought to that. Thank you. Mrs. Kidd.
Thank you, Linda Kidd, 2238 Paseo del Rey Street. I know the federal money is always tempting because it sounds great, but it's never free. And 55 years of commitment. I mean, you could lose your utilities. We've got streets we want paved. 5,000 doesn't seem like a lot. You know, it's not going to be just 5,000. And it's just a huge commitment. And Sean is right. The city can't run things. They're not in the business of it. We have some money right now. Keep our stuff going with the recession. I mean, with everything going on right now. If we can keep stabilized and keep going what we have, will be a blessing. And we have everything above a lot of other cities by being able to do that. But that's a huge commitment. Some private party wants to do it. That's great. Then, let them do it. But I don't think the city should touch it. Thank you.
Thank you. Terry?
Terry Campbell, 4469 Bourbon Street. I would just like to reiterate what the past speakers said, but the city doesn't have the resources and manpower. So you have to calculate how many new employees you're going to have to hire if you go in a public-private partnership like this. And we're already hung up with the state on strings from other grants that we've got, and that's the problem with grants. Once you reach out for that carrot, they got you hooked. And then you're going to be beholden to the state of California and all those liberals up in Sacramento. And this is kind of an obnoxious statement, but you guys know about all the Greek philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. My comment is beware of Greeks bearing gifts.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Anyone else like to speak on this matter?
Public comment on fire tonight.
If not, I'll close the matter in the public hearing, but return them for deliberation and a motion by the council.
Thank you. I just want to second what everybody said. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think it's a good thing for Needles, City of Needles, to do it all. And I agree, free money's not free. I don't even think we should give the 5,000 to a different organization because we don't want to get involved in this. We want to keep ourselves, I think, clear of this. If other people want to do it, fine. But I don't think the City of Needles should get involved at all.
Got a motion?
I make a motion to
leave it. I mean,
Is
you
it-
don't have to make a
It's
motion.
that direction, I think.
Yeah, it's just direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can.
So that's just my direction.
Yeah.
So good, John? You're with nothing else?
Staff direction?
Leave it.
You want a motion with?
Yeah, I would. I think.
I'll make a motion that the city of Needles not head this or head this program here.
Okay, there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, call for the vote.
Councilmember Campbell,
No.
Evans.
Yes.
Merritt.
Yes.
Belt,
Yes.
Longacre.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. City attorney's report.
And I have nothing this evening.
Thank you. City manager's report.
Meeting's not on long. I have nothing to report. Other than we're entering budget season.
Arrowhead.
Oh, I'll leave that to.
Ellen.
Okay, now I have to remember things. Well, we went to a lovely place in Lake Arrowhead to a conference. We had really great meetings with the county supervisors. We did get to see a presentation on the Home Key project, and maybe we can visit that again in the future. It's good for now. It was the most amazing. One of the things that we got to do there was to hear a keynote speaker, Jose Hernandez, who was an astronaut, a farm worker who grew up to be an astronaut. And it was one of the most riveting and compelling talks that I have ever heard. And it was kind of the consensus in the room in talking about, going forward, moving. He's written a few books. So we got to do that. And one of the amazing things that that man did was he invented the machine that does the 3D mammography. And I am one of the recipients of that machine and saving my life of catching what was happening in the early stages so it could be addressed before it went into full-blown cancer. I was in tears listening to his story, everything from where he came from to where he grew up. And so if you want to look up Jose Hernandez and his history, he has some books, children's books, adult books, but it really, it was very, very, very wonderful. He was there all weekend. Our head sheriff, Shannon Dykes, was there with us, and we had really nice conversations with him. Our new county supervisor, Mrs. Rao, was there. She takes over in January, and they lovingly call Mr. Cook the King, so you can have an audience with him. He was such a delightful man too. So we learned a lot of things about the economics, what's really going on, and the fear factor, the sky is falling, and that people don't need to be afraid of some things that they think they should be. And it was really a very interesting and educational thing, and I have so much more to learn, but I really enjoyed all of the speakers and all of the education that they gave us and the time put into this wonderful event. And I'm really grateful that I got to go there, represent you, talk about Needles, what's happening in Needles, what are the things we need, which is one of them is a CCRT, which is a community crisis response team. And I talked to the supervisors about that. We do not have that. And that is the liaison between mental health and the sheriff's office, so that they have someone that responds, because the funds have been allocated to our city, and now we want to get that implicated. So there were just some things that we got to talk about that we need, and they listened and they were working on a water. They were having conversations about our water when I got introduced to Supervisor Cook. So that was pretty cool too. So we had a meeting. We had a meeting while we were there, and it was great. So anything else you want to add, Doc?
Thank you.
It was a fun 2 days.
The Amazon movie.
Mr. Evans?
I just have one thing, the rodeo was back, and kudos to the rodeo committee. It was awesome. I had a great time, besides my guarantee that. Justin Scott.
You didn't swim though.
Yes, that I didn't win the cornhole tournament. I'm blaming it on Justin, but kudos to the rodeo committee. It was a blast. I had a blast, and I'm probably speaking for a lot of people. But thank you, Judy, and the rest of the rodeo committee.
Thank you. I just wanted to add something because that was the report on thing. I just want to tell you that movie, Jose Hernandez, Amazon is making that into a movie, the story of his life. So that was going to come out, and council request. Someone came to me and asked if we would consider putting a fishing dock in down at the river, to have a dock where they want it. I think is like it's by Jack Smith. It's in Jack Smith Park. It's by the Second Point. I'm not sure that's a really good place, because I know that's where we brought children to swim against the current in that little space there, to teach them endurance and to learn how to swim, fighting that current to swim. Not that you ever should fight it, but just for strength and endurance. But I think it would be a great idea to have a fishing dock. It's some place where someone could go out. It could be wheelchair accessible. They can fish all night. It also puts them out a little bit in the water where it's a little bit deeper, where they're not on the beach. People could sit there with their grandchildren. They could have chairs. But this was there was a community request from a gentleman who works in a business here, and he approached me and said, would the council consider a fishing dock? And I said, I will definitely bring it as a council request that we can look into. And I told him, he could meet with any of us and show us where he was thinking. I guess he has a fishing hole where he really gets fish. So I don't know. But so I'm bringing that to the council as a request that we look into the possibility of a fishing dock for people to, to stand on, not to jump off. No boats. No boats. Well, I don't think you should do backflips. Anyway, that's my request. Thank you.
Did you have anything else, Mr.
No, I did not.
Okay. Councilmember Merritt?
I want to piggyback on what Wade said. The rodeo was amazing. I had some of my friends come down from Bullhead who never come down here, and they were like, "Oh, Needles is great." So it was so fun. It was fun to show off our little town, and go to the museum if you get a chance. There's a lot of cool things, like Judy was saying. And also, I missed it this weekend because I wasn't feeling well. But they had the book, the gentleman who did the the ice and oil, ice and oil. I'm so sorry. I read it, but it was like a year ago. Ice and oil. So it was a really good book. I didn't get to the signing, but heard it was good. So thank you. That's it.
Nothing this evening, Your Honor. Thank you.
Your Honor, I got a couple, actually. Lane improvements and signage on River Road and K Street. Where are we at with those? We were supposed to extend that line and change it so we don't have a backup turning left onto the bridge.
Right, that's,
Happening.
Go ahead.
that's part of the contract with, the paver that's in town right now. When they do the striping.
They're gonna stripe that?
done, that's gonna be part of that. So I'm gonna say 2 weeks. But
okay.
That's fair.
I'd still like to clear the arrowhead weeds at that Jack Smith beach. It's gonna get hot. That first beach at Jack Smith. Remember the homeless had the tents inside the arrowhead weeds? We got about this much beach area on it. I'm gonna keep hitting on that until we take that new tractor we just bought and clear those weeds.
Do it.
Trash can for the train park thing. I'm thinking that's right out of my 600-foot range, so let's get a trash can down there. And then I was called by a citizen. There's a giant creosote bush on the corner of J Street and Balboa. It actually blocks the view if you look left towards my right. You can't see it. It's a huge bush. Let's chop that down.
Balboa, I'm sorry.
And J Street?
J?
And then also on Balboa, a citizens went and highlighted the potholes and spray painted them yellow around them. As much as I hate vandalism, damn brilliant for at nighttime. Maybe we can go fill those highlighted potholes in.
Do we know where they're at?
All the way up Balboa from J Street. And that's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. A couple things. Mayor Williams' iPad died, and that is why he dropped off this evening. I didn't scare him off, as some of you may think. And the other thing I want to know more seriously, one thing that I think Councilman Belt would appreciate, at the meeting in Arrowhead this last Thursday and Friday, Colonel Cook got up and said something that really hit home with me. And he said, President Putin is trying to kill every man, woman, and children in the Ukraine. And he had met Putin, and he had talked to him. And he's right. Scary. With that, I'll close.
It's true.